Welcome back to Horror Movie Month, and before I start this review, I just want to make this important quick announcement that I haven't moved yet. I'm going to be moving in a couple of days, and this technically means that for the next couple movie reviews, I will be doing movie reviews in a different format, in particular this one. And once I get to my new apartment, I will continue doing movie reviews how I used to do them. Just me and the camera talking about movies. But for a couple of days, I'll be doing movie reviews in different formats. In this format, at least. And I also love doing this format, too, because it's very interesting and it makes the video really fun to watch. And I'm pretty sure my viewers will like this. I'm pretty sure you guys will really like this. But anyway, enough talking. Let's start talking about our next review for Horror Movie Month. Christine. Christine came out in 1983 and is based off of the Stephen King novel. And this film stars Keith Gordon, and in this film, the story revolves around a teenager named Arnie. He's really focusing on getting a car that he would really love to drive. And he eventually comes across this car that he gets off of this man, and the car's name is Christine. But Arnie's two friends begin to find out the dark and sinister past of this car, which leads Arnie and many other individuals to be in danger. And the more Arnie starts to have a deep, deep love for this car, things go from bad to absolute horror. Let me get this out of the way. I love Stephen King. I absolutely love him. Very talented author. And I even really do love his movies. Most of them, at least. Yes, there are great Stephen King movies, and there are good and mediocre ones, and there are even a few terrible ones. But in cinema, Stephen King has a promising movie career with adaptations. And I'm not going to say Christine is one of his greatest adaptations, because it's not. But it's definitely nowhere near his worst. This is honestly a really effective horror movie, and it is honestly quite faithful to the book. And Christine is one of those Stephen King adaptations that starts off slow, but it gets very interesting into the first hour of the movie. Once the first hour of the movie hits, which this movie is like an hour and 15 minutes, so that's nearly 2 hours long. Once the first hour of the movie hits, that's when things really get interesting. Because that's when tension and deep, deep tension start to build up between our character Arnie and the relationship between him and Christine. And the relationship they have in this film is really, really deep. And you could absolutely tell that this car is literally changing this man, this teenager. It is ripping him apart. It is making him think crazy things. And it's taking control of him like the car wants him. And Arnie has no one but Christine to rely on. And while watching this film, you can tell it was absolutely devastating for his friends to try to help this teenager, to help their friend. And the most interesting thing is, on first viewing, you could probably think that it's Arnie causing all of this. And you probably may think that Arnie is going crazy. But it's the car. It's the car alone that's making Arnie really on edge. And the deep relationship that Arnie has with this car absolutely changes him. And it's scary. It really is. Because you may think it's Arnie doing all of this, when in reality, it's the car. And Christine messes up Arnie as a person and makes him turn on his family and his friends as the film goes on. I'd have to say the car for Christine, the design of the car alone really looks immaculate. It looks glamorous. It looks absolutely gorgeous. And from a perspective on where and when you look at it and how you look at the car, it kind of does look scary if you really do think about it. And yes, this movie can be silly at times, which I'm going to get into my flaws in a bit in this review. But before I get to my flaws about Christine, I want to mention and talk about why this is one of Stephen King's effective films. Not one of his best adaptations, but one of his effective films. Why is this film really effective? First off, it captures tension and suspense well. Not perfectly, but really well. And it dives in the world of Arnie and his family and his friends, and we us as the audience get to know every individual in the film and how they all have really good chemistry, except for maybe Arnie and his parents. Because on first viewing, you can tell that Arnie is upset with his parents because he can't really get a car. But as the film goes on, you may think, oh well, things will just get better. But things actually get deeper than that, and I mean deep. And it's not just with his family, but with his friends, like I mentioned. And that's because of John Carpenter's direction and how he decides to do shots in this film. This film is not as well directed as John Carpenter's other films like The Thing or Halloween, but John Carpenter does know how to make a freaking good camera work. The shots that he decides to do in this film set up many elements of the film. And behind the camera, Carpenter's telling you that you're in for a ride. Because Carpenter almost never fails at his directorial career. And yes, he's had his downfalls before, and all directors have had their downfalls. But John Carpenter directed this movie really well. The performances, for the most part, are strong. John Stockwell really does a good job in this film. Not really a well-known actor, but I think he really did deliver on what he had to do in this film. Wasn't perfect performance, but like I said, the performances are, for most of the part, are strong. And Stockwell really does good in this. So does Alexandra Paul. I thought she was really great in the movie. And she does have a lot of work to do in this movie. Especially as a soulmate to the main character. And a girlfriend in general. I thought she really did a really good job in this film. I have to say the atmosphere of Christine is honestly pitch perfect. I felt like the atmosphere never really lagged. I honestly felt like the car Christine itself blended in perfectly with the atmosphere. Even when she was out during the day or the night, every time that car appeared on screen, there was something really dark and sinister about her. And it gave me chills. It really did. So that's really a plus for the atmosphere. Now let's talk about my issues with this movie. Now, yes, I do have some major issues with this movie. This movie can be quite silly sometimes, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's Stephen King's fault as the writer. I wouldn't even say it has anything to do with the car, but some of the cheesy elements include maybe some side characters, and the performances can be way over the top, and they're trying to destroy Christine or trying to wreck the car apart, and then, the car goes after them and kills them. And I say it's kind of silly and a flaw because we never really get to know any of these people, and I know it's sort of a cliche to add the kind of bully type men inside of a horror movie, but we never really get a full understanding idea on who these people are and what they want with Christine the car. They just want to harm it. But there are some other flaws that I have with this movie. It's not just that flaw, and it has to do with some certain subplots. The kid blames his parents for not keeping Christine in the garage because Christine got destroyed, and that builds up tension and suspense. I do love the tension and suspense that's built up, but once it gets to that point where he's just fed up with his parents and he's sick and tired of it, it honestly feels like he just shuns away from the world completely, and it's just a cheap way to build up suspense and tension. Don't get me wrong, I really do enjoy the suspense and tension in this film. I just thought how it started up wasn't really that smart, and it's been done in other horror movies many times. But that's really my flaws with the movie. The sinister nature behind the car itself is very interesting and fascinating, honestly. Not in a good way, in a bad way. We hear early on in the film that a woman actually, was supposedly murdered in Christine, the car itself. And that's technically all we really know. We don't necessarily know why the car is alive itself. We, as the audience, just have to figure that out and understand that. And I think that's part of why the suspense and tension is really well done in this film, honestly. There were times where I felt chills. And in the end, Christine is a really effective horror film and a really effective Stephen King adaptation, I'd say. Definitely not one of the best, and definitely not one of the worst. But it is a good movie, especially a good horror movie. And sure, I'm going to be the first to admit it. Sometimes this film can be cheesy to watch in some certain elements. But other times, you could literally ignore the fact that this movie is cheesy sometimes. And maybe it's not trying to be cheesy. But just focus on the characters and the suspense and the tension and even the atmosphere and how everything's set up in the film. And throw away the cheesy elements. And you'll honestly have a good time with this film. I'm going to give Christine a B. Guys, thank you guys so much for watching this review. Look forward to more reviews that are coming for Horror Movie Month very soon. You guys are the best. Love every single one of you. And as always, if you're new here and you like what you see here, why not hit that subscribe button to join the Eli B/520 community. And I will see you next time. Peace out.